Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome on Senegameli Podcast Live. I know that you guys have been waiting for me to do this video in English concerning African tradition. So, as you might already know, we're going to talk about African tradition, African customs, African habits, African behaviors, and especially into or concerning traditional African societies. So we're going to try to answer these questions. Are African traditions good? Are they bad? Do they evolve with time? Are they frozen? Are they beneficial for us? Should we abolish some? This is what we're going to answer now. So I've picked 4 aspects. The first aspect is the educational aspect. The second aspect is the social values aspect, with an emphasis on solidarity. The third aspect is the marital aspect, and with the example, the bride price. And the fourth aspect is the funeral rites and the place of death into African societies. So first, we're going to give the meaning or try to explain what are traditions, and then we go on with different instances or different examples. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome on Senegameli Podcast Live. I know that some of you guys have been waiting for me to do these podcasts in English since I did it in French. And as you might already know, we're going to talk about tradition. African tradition, African customs, African habits, African behaviors, especially among African societies. So we're going to answer or try to answer different questions. So here are the questions. Are African traditions good? Are they bad? Do they change with time? Do some of them have been adapted to benefit some part of population? Should we abolish some of them? So here are the main questions that I'm going to answer. And to answer these questions, I've picked 4 topics. The first topic is the educational topic. The second one is social values with an emphasis on solidarity. The third example or the third aspect is the marital aspect, with an example which is bride price, the bride price. And the fourth example is funeral rites and the place of death in African societies. So here are the 4 main topics. But if I have more ideas of more inspiration, I will add some of, topics to the list. So let's start by trying to give the meaning and try to explain what is tradition. So what are tradition? Tradition are a bunch of ideas, of habits, of behaviors, of knowledge, of techniques given from generation to generation from the member of one community. So this is what is tradition. But because we're going to talk about African societies, if we take African societies or ancestral societies, most of them were communities where the well-being of a group was more important than the well-being of one people. And this is where we're going to see the difference between modern societies such as European societies and Western societies in general, which are, for most of them, individualist societies where everybody is looking to make or everybody is looking for his or her own well-being, and we have all these consumer societies, and buying stuff that we don't need, don't care for others, and so on. So I guess that you guys know what is basically an individual society. But at the meantime, or meanwhile, still today in Africa, though it is slowing down, we still have these communities and people helping each other. So now we're going to jump into the first example, which is education. So when we talk about education in Africa, we have what we call the respect of elders. It is a very simple rule that says that one should respect anybody that is older than he or she. And this rule starts in the family. So one should respect his parents, his grandparents, his aunties, his uncles, his older brother, older sisters, and so on. And this also goes with the fact that we cannot, or we are not allowed to call other persons by their direct name. For example, in Togo, or among the Ewe people of Togo and Ghana and also Benin, we use some words such as Efo, Davi, Dagan, Da, and so on. So these words are a way of respect. We also have Togbi, Ete, Nyine, Tashi, and so on. So those words these words means big brother, big sister, uncle, auntie, and so on. So these words are a form of respect. When you want to address someone, to someone, you need to use this word. If you don't use this word, this can be seen as you being disrespectful. And I also know that among the Congolese people and other countries in Central Africa, they use yaya, which is a way, if I'm not telling lie, to address other people, and sometimes it could be translated as big brother, big sister, big brother. So basically, these words are used as a form of respect, and must be used. So African education is also about transmitting values to children, and we're going to talk about the value of work. For example, in many African homes, especially in villages, people wake up very early when the sun rises, or even before, sometimes at 4:30 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 5:30 a.m. And what people do, they start by sweeping the compound, sweeping the house, and doing all that chores. And children must be part of it. Laziness is not allowed. And especially in rural communities, children help their parents to do the labor, to go to work, and doing almost everything that the parents do to help them. So let's say that it can be a good aspect of it, because giving the children the value of work, the value of effort, the value of helping the parents and all that stuff. But if we look at child labor, which is, a negative, a bad aspect of it, is that in communities, some children are used as slaves, to work, whether in farms, whether on lakes. If we take the example of Ghana and Volta Lake, where children are used to to fish. They help the fishermen, especially they go into the deep water to untie the nets, and children are treated as slaves. They are not paid, they are not fed well, and all that stuff. So the question is that we should ask ourselves is that this is tradition, because these things have been transmitted from generation to generation, and we can ask ourselves is that this tradition, should they be maintained? Should they be changed? Are these children happy? Do they enjoy their life? So this is what we should ask ourselves. So let me go on to the next topic. African tradition is also about transmitting knowledge and values to children. And this goes with the learning of a language or different languages. And if we look at the language aspect or linguistic aspect, we have proverbs, tales, jokes, games, and history about a people, about a tribe, about where they come from, about a village, about a community. So the aim of doing that is to make people so they can be part of the community. And this also goes with the learning of an activity, whether this is a farming activity, a fishing activity, a handcraft activity, a market activity. So the aim is to make the person not independent, sometimes independent, but to make every individual a part of the community. And we have what we call the Ubuntu mindset, which can be translated as I am because we are. This particular mindset places the community before the individual. It also displays the power, the fact of being united, the fact of being together, and the power of being together. So Ubuntu vision or Ubuntu mindset is very important in African ancestral communities. And in my opinion, it is a reason why many African kingdoms and empires were there, because there was this unity among a community. And it also goes with the fact that if something wrong happened to a member of the community, I am also affected. And there is this proverb that say that if the house of your neighbor is burning, you should hurry to help him or her to stop the fire, because the fire could also, get at your own house. So when something bad happened to a member of the community, we should also help this member of the community, because when something bad happened to us, we would also want people to help us. Though this mentality, this vision, this mindset is, in my opinion, very important. So now we're going to talk about solidarity, which is one of the core value of the African values or the African culture. It is the same solidarity that displays itself when somebody dies and people from the family, from a village, from a community is helping the family to bury this person. It is the same solidarity that make people to invest on someone to go abroad to study. It is the same solidarity that make Africans abroad to help their family in Africa back home. It is the same solidarity that make that when somebody is in need, people are giving money to help this person. It is the same solidarity that make Africans to practice tontine, which is an economic system where money is going from hand to hand in a community, and everybody is using that same money when the turn come. So if you don't know what is tontine, you should go to learn about it. And I could give a lot of more examples. So we can say that solidarity is the root of African culture, and Africans really have this pattern of solidarity, of helping each other, and so on. But the thing is, with the modern lifestyle and a lot of Africans being abroad and being confronted to the realities of abroad, we tend to lose the solidarity, especially among us Africans in the diaspora. But now I'm going to take an example of a person living in the diaspora, whether in the US or in Europe. This person has been living in Europe for 30 years, and this person has been sending $2,000 each month to his family in Africa for 30 years. So let's do the calculation. $200 times 12 months times 30 years. The result is $72,000. So let's say that this person has been sending this money to his family, but unfortunately, his family hasn't been able to build anything. Money was used to buy food, to enjoy life, to drink beer, to also help sick people, but money was not used to be, how can I say? Money was not used to make it grow. It was simply used. So on one hand, we have a person which made a lot of sacrifices abroad and sending this money to his family. But this family sometimes made up excuses, made a false story just to get money from this person abroad. And the money, the way they used the money wasn't the best way to use it, because they were dependent of this person. So here we have a pattern of, or something that really happens among us Africans, that some of people abroad have been sending money home to their family, and unfortunately their family wasn't able to make a good use of this money, and because of the economic realities and all the poverty and so on, sometimes people also lie to their family just to take money, so just to take advantage of their money. And people abroad have been sacrificing themselves also, because when you send that amount of money, it means that you could have used that money to travel, to buy things, to build something, to start a company, to do many things. And though a lot of us want to help our families, we want the well-being of our families, but the truth is, sending money sometimes is not the best option. And we could talk about sending money casually, or at least for occasions. For example, if someone is sick, or to pay for school fees, all that things. But sending that kind of money every month, it means that you make people used to get that money. So sometimes even if they don't work, they will get that money for sure. So many Africans, including my parents, have been in that situation where they sent money for years to their family back home. But if we do accounting, if I may say, if we do the calculation of the amounts that they have been sending home, the truth is now many of that money, or this money, there is nothing that is built. Nothing has been built. It's like all that money vanished. So we also need to take that in consideration, that should we need, and this is another question, should people in the diaspora help their family? Should they send money to their family? Especially if you look at figures, if you look at numbers, you see that Africans abroad send billions of dollars each year, and this money that is sent really contributes to the African economy. But at the same time, some Africans abroad forget about their dreams, forget about their expectation, forget about their plans, just to help this family. So the question is, solidarity, is it good, especially in this example, or should we have more control about the money that we are giving to our family? So the question is asked, and everybody is welcome to say his or her mind in the comment section. Now let's talk about the marital aspect, especially the bride price. This bride price that is also referred nowadays as a way for in-laws to better themselves, to get money from the man. This same bride price that has been turned into a list of things: electronics, phones, computers, fridges, coolers, freezers, kitchenware, clothes, dress, even wigs. So we're going to try to explain, because precisely bride price has been changed, has been corrupted by today's, or by modern's lifestyle. What is the aim of bride price? Basically, or traditionally, the bride price was representing an union. Of course, you had the union of a man and a woman, but also the union of two families. And two families were going to make one through the marriage of their son and their daughter. So it is really that aspect of the kinship, the relation between those two families was represented by the bride price. And at that time, there was not all that marketing, all that consumer society, and all that economic problems in Africa. So the bride price was symbolic. A man could bring a goat, a cow, traditional clothes, traditional fabrics, palm wine, cola nuts. These were symbolic, and also to prove that he was able to take care of a home. He was able to take care of a woman. So this is basically what was bride price about. And as I said, the bride price has been corrupted. And now we're going to see the reasons why, or at least try to see the reasons of people asking for all this stuff. We also talk about sometimes that the bride price is seen as a way for a man to buy a woman, to purchase a woman. So all this perception of the bride price and the domination of a man is a problem in the society. So if we put ourselves on some parents' shoes, some will say that they invested on their daughter, that they sent her to school, that they educated her, that they trained her, that they taught her everything she needs to know as a woman, and that the man that is willing to marry her should be wealthy enough, should be able to pay a high bride price. So this point of view, I mean, one can understand it. But on another hand, men, this became a burden for many men. And nowadays, many couples don't marry anymore. They just date because the men know that the bride price that the parents are asking is too high. So this became a problem. And last time I was, looking at something on the internet, and I came across a list. On that list, actually, it was a bride price list, and you have different characteristics. The first characteristic was if the woman was a virgin, and next to that writing, you had an amount. So as we were going with the other characteristics, the amount was going up. So if the woman is graduated, if she went to school and got a degree, then the amount would be higher. If the woman is light skinned, if she's fair, then the amount will go higher. If the woman knows how to cook, then the price will go higher, and so on and so on and so on. And when I saw that list, I was, I said, what the fuck? Because when some people say that, they have the feeling that the bride price is like a way for men to purchase women. That's really what I felt, because this list was like a project characteristic list. Because the more characteristic you had, the higher the price will be. And the way I see it, I mean, if the man has, if he's wealthy, he's ready to pay that, I don't have a problem with that. Because at the end of the day, they find, there is a way to find an agreement with the in-laws. But I mean, a man that's paid the bride price doesn't mean that he's going to be faithful, doesn't mean that he's going to respect his wife, doesn't mean that he's going to take care of a woman. So this bride price thing is, the way that has been corrupted is causing a lot of trouble. Some men also have debt because of this bride price stuff. So, in my opinion, this is the type of tradition, if you call it, tradition, or this type of mindset that we need to change. Even though I know that because of the economic realities, the bride price became a way for some families to get some money, unfortunately. But using, other people, using this way to get money is tricky, because we're talking about a union between two persons, which is sacred, in my opinion. So using this way to make money is kind of tricky to me. Yeah, it's kind of tricky to me. And we could also talk about African weddings, African parties, when people spend thousands of dollars, millions of Ghanaian cedis, millions of Nigerian naira, millions of francs CFA, to party. And we could also ask ourselves, because we all know that African parties, African weddings are the best, but many couples spend a lot of money and at the end have debts. And in my opinion, when you marry, it's like you want to build something, you want to start something new in life with your partner. But if you start in life and you are already indebted, so how will you do? How will you do? Especially, sometimes the bride and the groom don't want to spend a lot of money on the wedding party and so on. But the family is putting pressure on them. So the party can be big, invite hundreds of people, food, preparing all that dressing, the dress, all that stuff, just for one day. And after that, the wedding is done, people will start having financial trouble, all that stuff. So my question is this really worth it? I know that one should marry once in a life, or marriage is sacred, so a wedding is not something that happens every day. But I'm asking myself, because when it comes to entertaining, we Africans are the best when it comes to going to parties, when it comes to enjoy life, we are the best. But a lot of us, unfortunately, when it comes to investments, when it comes to building our future, when it comes to invest on our education, invest on, things that will make us smarter and also richer. Sometimes we don't have this mindset. So I'm asking the question again, is it really worth it? Well, I'm going to talk about something that I didn't plan to say, but it just came up to my mind. And it is about the economic aspects. Because some of our traditions are keeping us from going forward. They are keeping us from, I'm not going to say develop, because what is developing? Development is, in my opinion, a Western concept. And we are not trying to, or we shouldn't try to copy or doing a race with the West. We shouldn't do that, because if we do that, we're going to forget all our tradition, and this is what is happening now. But we should adapt some of tradition to help us going forward, to help us to find this harmony with the past world and the new world. This is why I'm also doing this talk, to wake us up on this issue, to say that, come on, some traditions are bad, some traditions are harmful, some of them are helpful. So we should choose and look at ourselves and think about it, that even though this thing has been practiced by my father, my mother, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, this thing is harmful to me. It pains me. It is not because it's a tradition that we should do it. Tradition that we have should be good. So we should skip all the negative aspects of the bad tradition. This is what I'm saying, because we are still behind, and if we not do so, we're still behind. And if we also are willing to follow other people's traditions, then we will not have peace, because rejecting who you are, rejecting your identity, is like killing yourself. At least this is the way I see it. My other point was concerning funeral rites among Africans. Because in Africa, death is not seen as the same as in Europe. Because in African culture, the dead people are not really dead. I'm not going to explain the African spirituality and go into details. But if you are willing to know more about the African spirituality, you should go on Google and find what you're looking for. But basically, in the African spirituality, the dead are not dead. They are still here with us, even though we cannot see them. And when someone dies, there are special rites that are performed, though it depends on the tribes, in different culture. But respect is given to the dead. Sometimes we have gunshots to honor the memory of the person, and all these ceremonies and rites, just to remember the person. So respect is given to the dead, and which is a good thing. But what I wanted to say is the negative aspect of it. Why? Because the tradition, this is a good tradition, to pay respect to the dead is a good tradition. But if we talk about today realities, we see that some people die and are kept in the, how do you call it? Funerariums. I don't know, you call it in funeral homes. Sorry, funeral homes for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and it is money to keep someone in a funeral home. Just because we want to do a big party, because as I said earlier, death, and when you go to funerals in Africa, sometimes it feels like it's a party, because though there is the sadness, the pain of, of the loved one being gone, but people dance, people, it is not, it is sad, but at the same time it is joyful. And it is a business. It is a business. You will see many groups, music bands performing at funerals, so it is a business as well. But what I want to say is that even sometimes when we want to pay respect to the dead ones, we do it in a way that is not good with the realities that we're living every day, because we will keep, instead of managing the resources that we have, the money that we have, to bury the person quickly into a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. This is why I really respect the Muslims on this issue, because when it comes to bury people, they do it very quickly, so they don't spend a lot of money on burials. But us non-Muslims, whether Christians, whether other spiritualities, it is a tradition, but this tradition also has been changed, because we keep people in funeral homes for several weeks, and these funeral homes need to be paid. So we spend a lot of money on these things, millions of, millions, thousands, a lot of money. And when it comes to making, parties for funerals, for a funeral, it's also a lot of money, food, uh, renting chairs and these tents. And something happened last time. It was on Instagram. It was at a funeral, and you had, I think it was 5 guys who were dancing. It was happening in Ghana. These people they were dancing, and they were holding the coffin. So they were holding the coffin and dancing. But somehow the guys got weak, and the coffin just collapsed. The coffin opened and they dropped the coffin. And when I saw that, it was, I laughed. I laughed because Africans, even for funerals, we are joyful. We are joyful. But the question is still the same. Why don't we, why don't we are not aware, or we are not putting actions to adapt these traditions, or to make these traditions less painful for us? Because, and I was saying this to my auntie last time, that when somebody is alive, it is money. When somebody dies, also, it is money we need to spend for this person. So I was wondering, I was asking myself that, although I respect and I know that giving respect to a dead person is really part of tradition, but I really think that we need to manage, so we will not spend a lot of money on things that will not make us go forward. So this this was my point. And also, there was also another point that we could have talked about. It is the female genital mutilation, or female circumcision, which is also a tradition in many African tribes. And unfortunately, this tradition has been corrupted as well, and has been used for a way to control women's sexual pleasure and for some men to dominate women. And the funny thing is that when it comes to this practice, it is the women who also have been mutilated that also transmit or that make the same practice to their daughters. And I'm not going to go more into this issue, but this tradition, for example, since we don't know the meaning behind it, a lot of people don't know the meaning behind it. And this is the problem we have. I'm going to give you 3 examples of other tradition or other habits that we have or that people say, but we don't know the real meaning of it. The first example is that in Africa, we say that one should not use his left hand to greet people, to eat, or to receive, or to give. And I, who grew up in Europe, even though I grew in Europe, I knew that rule, but I didn't know the meaning behind it. I didn't know the meaning behind it. So this is the first example. The second example is in Africa, we say that one should not pound food at night, because if you do so, this will bring, bad spirits, bad luck, and all that stuff. Another example, the third example is in Africa, one should not sweep at night, because if you sweep at night, it's like you are picking up problems, you are picking up misfortunes, and bad things will happen to you. So these things that we say, most of the time we don't understand the meaning of it. Why? Because we lost our culture. And sometimes these things are related to our spirituality. But since we have adopted another spirituality, we don't know the meaning of these things anymore. And another point is that even sometimes when we ask our parents, they don't know, because themselves, that's how they have been taught. And sometimes when a child is asking some things to another person, it is seen sometimes as a lack of respect. Because if you ask, you shouldn't ask, because the person, the adult, is telling you, so you should take it like this. And this is the issue we have with the African education, is that sometimes the African education is not, or does not let the children speak, does not let the children express themselves. Children cannot have a deep talk, and sometimes, I'm not trying to say it's always the case, but sometimes children cannot have a real conversation, a real chat with an adult. Children sometimes are not able to ask questions. They just need to take things like that because adults have been telling them. So this is how we came where we are today, with us not telling, or with us not knowing some of our tradition, some of our culture, because we've been told to shut up. We've been told to listen to elders. So I talked a lot, and if you are still listening to what I'm saying, well, thank you. And I want to congratulate you for listening to my long chat. So if you have impressions of, or comments, or feel free to to comment, feel free to like, and feel free to share. So I hope that I was, clear in what I said. And if there was something that I said that wasn't clear, just let me know. So thank you for listening to me, and I'll see you in another podcast.